So now we move on to chat with, are you mic'd up?
I am mic'd up.
With Helen McRae from Mindshare. Thanks for coming.
Pleasure.
What's your assessment of Richard's assessment? Netflix, the demographic looks appealing to an advertiser, and yet you have the risk of churn. Are you having those conversations with Netflix or internally, or how would you assess the opportunity of premium VOD?
Well, I think, and Richard, he made the point that at the moment they're not looking at it, but I think the whole move towards that area has presented a challenge. It's presented a challenge for broadcasters to see actually all of those younger viewers moving more to that. And even I'm not a younger viewer. I'm kind of young, but I still have seen my own viewing habits changed quite a lot, actually, in the last year or two, and become a box binger myself in terms of content. So I do think it does create a challenge. It creates a challenge, I think, for the broadcasters to say, okay, how can we up our game in terms of content to actually compete with some of it? Because I do think some of the content is quite good, which is why people do it, why people move over.
Okay, so we're approaching the end of the year. What did 2015 mean for you at Mindshare?
I got a new job, but for what it meant for me, I mean, I think we're now beginning to. I think that the conversation of TV is dying is pretty much dead. I think people are still actually understand there is still a role for TV. That role is changing, but it's still very important. TV is still the dominant channel. It still delivers great ROI. But at the same time, the whole concept of moving more towards video and the whole measurement angle. So measurement's becoming an increasing discussion point. I think yesterday there was lots of discussion. I mean, the key points that were talked about were data, measurement, programmatic. I think I've seen now more of my time spent on those topics than ever before. And that is because how can we break down those walled gardens? How can we actually become, as an industry, become better at measuring video in totality and not these walled gardens? Because you do have, the contentious YouTube, quote saying spend 24% of your TV money into YouTube, which is quite simplistic. I don't even think they could handle all of that. And nor do I think that's the right solution. But it is forcing a lot of discussion around measurement about how can we get a hold of sort of understand what is the right balance. And that's all about understanding consumers, the audience. And I think sometimes with all of this discussion about programmatic and data, we forget that at the end of it, or a lot of it, is humans and people, they want to see great content. They want to be in control of that content. How can we make sure that we're actually capitalizing on what the audience wants? And a lot of the broadcasters are doing it. So we've talked about, you mentioned AdSmart, you've seen Channel 4, doing mass personalization as well. So everyone's moving in that area, but I think it's only just started. So I think that is those themes for 2015, I think will also continue in 2016 as well.
So when you talk about measuring ads across walled gardens, does that mean that you think it's just all video now, regardless of platform? So a pre-roll is the same as a TV spot, or do you still?
Well, you can go into all sorts of contentiousness about that one, about what's the role of content? Is a 3-second engagement the same as watching a 30-second spot? I think that is still something that is up for debate, and I think there's lots of discussion. How does Barb going to step up to it? ThinkBox has done research. There's plenty of stuff out there, but no one has collectively nailed that bit. But it is a big bone of contention.
Okay, so what do you think is the easy question? What do you think is?
That always means it's not going to be an easy question.
We know a lot about the kind of industry dynamics that agencies and we in this room have to respond to, but what do you think is the most important consumer media shift or trend that's occurring right now that you need to respond to?
Well, I mean, I'll answer that for myself, because I am a TV watcher. And I think it is it is the fact that, the role of TV, or the role is beginning to change. There was always still going to be a role that I want to watch, TV with my boys, in kind of a shared environment. But I'm becoming more about watching what I want when I want it. And it's not that view. If I watch something, if I watch, 4 episodes of, Man in the High Castle, or if I watch something, it's not counted, it's not measured. Mm-hmm. If I watch, something that's, on telly, on Sky, it's still not counted. So we need to be able to take a more accurate view on understanding that change. But for me, and I think everyone here, if you think about your own viewing habits and how they've changed over time, that's what we need to understand more of.
Mm-hmm. So then what is the place of TV? That word alone can mean multiple different things right now, I guess, but what is the role of TV in the modern media mix?
Well, I don't even know what the modern media mix is. The modern media mix to me is something that is ultimately what is going to deliver the best experience for the brand and for the consumer in that mix. And that modern media mix may not be only YouTube or, I don't know what that modern media mix. I think that we need to stop, we need to look at things from a video perspective, not from silo media, elements. I think we need to take a look how they all work together. That for me is probably more of the modern media mix, looking at it in totality and across screens as opposed to just the individual channel components. Mm.
So what happens then as TV becomes connected, as that box in the living room tends to take on some of the characteristics of online video, like targeting, like so-called addressability? What does that mean for TV ads in the next 5-10 years? And do you, given that online ads can be super targeted in a way that traditional TV has not been thus far, do you see any chance of TV moving from being kind of more of a branding mechanism to becoming more of a performance ad mechanism?
I definitely think that's going to happen. I think the challenge, though, is, and I think the technology is getting better and better, and we need to be able to make sure we're measuring it. I think, if I'm honest, one of the big challenges, when I'm speaking to clients is, well, how am I going to create all that content? All of that mass content, that mass personalization. Am I going to now have to move from a marketing paradigm of, 3 or 4 big brand campaigns to millions and millions of campaigns, and frankly, can creative agencies or content producers be able to actually produce that at volume, in an adaptive way in real time? And I think that, to me, is also one of the challenges. The other challenge is even though the TVs are IP enabled, I don't know about where you live, but my broadband is shit. So the challenge for me is also the infrastructure has to. A lot of TVs now are IP enabled, but I think there's a challenge then of how do you scale? How does that become scale? And that infrastructure needs to be there to do it.
So I think the first part of what you were talking about alludes to dynamic ad insertion, the ability to create a personalized ad from maybe fragments of creative. So what you're saying points to then maybe a renaissance or a greater role for creativity in that sector. Sort of with all this talk of data in the industry, we often talk about, is it more of a maths industry right now than the creative industry that perhaps it always has been? Is dynamic ad insertion where creativity can come back?
Well, I think it's the fusion of both, isn't it? I think that, understanding the audiences and understanding all that data and using that to generate creative ideas and and insight. I think it's both. So you go from Mad Men to Math Men to Meta Women, maybe even controversially. But I think that's, it's about putting those pieces together, because I think the risk of us focusing too much on data and programmatic, we actually forget what actually does that mean. It's about understanding understanding our audience. It is about insight, and that insight leads to great ideas, great creativity, and that's great for the consumers. It's also great for brands, whether you're trying to build a brand, maintain brand equity or even drive, particular brand outcomes, in a performance type of.
So, with the rise of ad tech moving into video, there's a lot of vendors positioning in the space, many of them on the hoarding over there. So there's this notion that a brand, a client, maybe even an agency can, using these platforms, can do more themselves nowadays and maybe not necessarily need an agency's input.
You're telling me I'm going to be out of my job? Are you asking me if I'm going to be out of a job?
Well, there's a notion that the agency may be disintermediated. What do you think the agency is for, and what role can it hold on to?
I think you can predict what my answer is going to be. I think that, and again, speaking to clients, I think one of the challenges is that it is a big challenge. I mean, a lot of clients, we're talking about, do we in-house, do we go direct, etc. But there is a challenge just about and the challenge for us as media agencies, or generally, is just we need to step up to that challenge to be able to harness all of that, data, convert it into something which is insightful, which provides a powerful point of view and a strong point of view for clients. Because at the moment now, clients feel very overwhelmed by all this data. They don't really know which way it's going to go, what should I do, et cetera, et cetera. And we as media agencies, if we are to remain relevant and engage and still have a very strong strategic advisorial role with our clients, we need to step up to that game and be able to play in that space.
What is the level of client understanding about some of these changes that are happening? Like how much work do you have to do with them? Well,
some of my clients are in this room, so I'd say they're deeply au fait with it. Well, and let's say, I mean, it's hard. It is. Some clients, I think, are more interested and more engaged with this. Other clients simply say, I just need you to help me sort it out. What does all of this mean? So there is a huge spectrum of it. But I think what they're all commonly asking for is a clear, agnostic point of view that says, where do you think I should be putting my money? What's going to be the best for my brands? What's going to be the best experience for my consumers? And we should be giving that advice.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so what about the notion of ad blocking? So we hear a lot about that this year, I guess more so in respect of display ads on the web and now on mobile, thanks to iOS 9. Is it real in video yet? Do you see that? And is it the threat that some people seem to indicate that it is?
I think it is. I mean, and again, as part of my personal thing of trying to being human and focus on the human, my 4-year-old knows what that little black box is on YouTube, skip ad. So even he knows that gets him to. So it is a real thing. It is something that we have to then understand, and that goes back to this whole kind of comment about video. And this is again conversation happening in the States about ad blocking and PVRs, about how it would destroy, the industry, etc. And it didn't actually happen, right? It didn't actually. The industry didn't collapse as well. So yes, I think it is an issue, but is it going to be, a cataclysmic thing? I don't know. It's just a challenge we have to overcome.
Mm-hmm. I mean, how will you overcome it? Will that be with technology platforms or?
It's about technology, but it's also about doing great content, because that's the other bit. Is it, if you're going to skip something that is boring, I mean, you take a look at the buzz that happened in the last couple of months about the Christmas ads. So the US has Super Bowl. Everyone talks about the ads in the Super Bowl. In the UK, bizarrely, we're talking about all of the Christmas ads. And so people were actually having online conversations talking about 30-second spots. They were talking about, the John Lewis one, the Marks and Spencer one, Lidl, etc. That was a real big topic of conversation. And for goodness sake, they were talking about ads.
Yeah. And we often hear a lot of people say that marketers should tell stories. I guess they've been doing that for a long time. If J.R. Hartley wasn't a story, I don't know what was.
Well, but that's what it is, and that's the reason why people like to talk about it, because it somehow it engages them. There's an insight there. They recognise something, and it was an enjoyable experience.
Yeah. So thinking about it from the broadcaster side, I mean, TV seems to have showed up and changed by virtue of giving viewers and advertisers big event appointment to view TV and live TV seems to have proved resilient because of that. What do you think they have to do next in order to continue to give you audience?
I think the same things that what they're doing now. I mean, if you look at all of the broadcasters now, I think they are still very much focused on live viewing and great content and high-end production. And I think the likes of Netflix and Amazon is kind of and the challenge of young people kind of dropping off broadcast TV. So I think there's that challenge about how can we create great content to re-engage people. But then again, the same sort of thing. All of the broadcasters have invested heavily in terms of data and technology to make sure that their content is available when consumers want it, when audiences want to do it, and in a way that they can choose to, watch on C4. I can watch 6 of Empire. It's quite embarrassing, actually. But I really like it. But I like watching 3 or 4 episodes in a row while I'm doing work or doing something else.
And how would you say the UK industry is positioned relative to, like say, North America, in respect of some of these changes and being able to deliver what you need? Like we have in this country, we have Sky AdSmart and Advance, and I bet I alluded to ITV's recent announcement. How would you compare and contrast?
It's always interesting because, as you can tell, I grew up in the States, but I think the Americans are very quick to kind of talk about global TV or global media, but I think the US is a very particular market. It's very different to the rest of the world. Americans need to kind of understand there is a world outside of the bubble. And I would actually say that the UK, in my opinion, is probably the most sophisticated in the world. Is it perfect? Do we still have lots to learn? Absolutely. But the stuff that is being done here, you mentioned it before, Scott, a lot of the broadcasters, it is happening here. And a lot of stuff that's happening here can actually then be transported out more readily than, say, something in the US, because the US is a very particular market.
And which of those are you playing with already, like the Sky and the Sky platform and ITV's announcement? Are you engaging?
We're playing with all of them. And I think, again, that goes back to, but at the same time, we're playing with all of the broadcasters, we're playing with, YouTube's, Google's, etc. And that's the role of the media agency, is to actually spread across all of those platforms to be able to understand how to use them and what is the right mix for our clients.
What do they have right and wrong? What do they have right and wrong?
All of them individually? Well, I mean, okay, so if I take, I think that we have not yet nailed collectively. I mean, everyone knows that, when we talk about creating a plan, we talk about how we can set weights and optimize. But when it comes to reporting, we still fall back into silos. We are not good as an industry at taking a collective, or have a collective system to sort of say measure what does video in its totality across all of the different parameters, how does that work? What does it mean? What is the return? We have people, we have YouTube saying, I'm only going to focus on YouTube. You have, everyone else sort of focusing on just one element, as opposed to the winner is going to be, how do we package it all up? That is what our clients want. That is what's going to win the game, putting it all together.
That sounds like a very complex map, and it suggests you're shooting for like a single overarching metric. What is that metric?
I don't know. And I think that's the challenge. I'm stepping out here saying I don't know, and that's the reason why that metric hasn't been, discovered. I mean, there was some discussion in the States about, the IGRP and all that sort of stuff, but it is a challenge. But I think that what's interesting, and this year has kind of forced or accelerated that debate in the sense that, you do have, I think next year, the likes of, say, YouTube and Facebook will go to and try and get more of the TV revenue. Mm-hmm. So they're going to go and basically say, we are not about incremental, we can now do mass, right? And I think that's going to be an interesting dynamic shift when they say, okay, well, we can do the same now as TV. So that's going to be another kind of, and that's why we have to look at it in totality, and we have to, but I don't know.
Is it far off?
I'm going to give that to Dominic. He was supposed to be here, Proctor. So I'll ask him the question. I'll get back to you on that one.
Okay. At this point, does anyone else have any comments or questions? What am I not asking? Anyone could put their hand up. No? Did you? There is a mic, if you could wait.
I was really hoping I had escaped being asked a question.
Could you tell us who you are and which company you're from?
Luis Borrell from Analysis Mason. I'm a consultant in the media space internationally. So I think it's a common question, as you said, in this unique metric. I think that we are spoiling the TV industry, where we have a very good metric that helps us understanding viewing habits and monetize those habits through advertising. In other retail industries, I'm not sure they have a unique view of the world on different products selling through different retail brands. And I wonder if, I think there are two scenarios where we as an industry, we have a unique metric mapping all this complex evolution of the video market, or we don't. And we may have to work with a suboptimal matrix with different elements to it. And I think at the moment, that's what we're doing. Yeah. And I'm not sure the industry will come up with a solution. And I doubt that any government would like to intervene to create that solution as a whole, or we have the force or the power to impose it to the players. So just an open question on those two scenarios for you or anyone else in the audience.
And do you feel like you open a little door on what's possible regarding targeting and threading everything together and threading the needle to the ROI of sales uplift, and there's all these possibilities. Is the industry getting ahead of itself in shooting for that metric? And
no, why would it be Why would it be going out? I think we have to keep pushing. We have to ask the difficult questions. But I absolutely take your point that the answer to that we may not be able to get, and we will be living in a suboptimal world potentially. But then how can we actually get there? And I think taking a more holistic view, even if it's not just everything all together, but kind of starting to pull things together, then how can we do that bit by bit is what we should be doing. Okay. Otherwise, we're going to end up with these continuing endless debates, which they go nowhere.
Does anyone else want to chip in? No. Okay, so I'll just ask, how, moving ahead, December, January, how will next year be different from this year? Well, I think that I think a lot of the continuing themes will be the same. I think I would like to sort of see, I think my thing would be that I think YouTube and Facebook will become much more aggressive in terms of TV. So we really do need to think about their role in the mix, because they're very brazen about some of the comments and not perhaps correct. I think that the creative challenge is still going to be something we have. We spent a lot of time talking about the tech, but if we build the pipes and if we get all the things in place, do we have enough content to actually do this sort of work? And that's a question that all the clients are asking, to say, great, I can do all this. How am I actually going to do it? How am I going to be able to afford to do all of this? And then the challenge of making sure that we capitalize on, as media agencies, we capitalize on the fact that we are uniquely placed to be able to look across this, and we should be collectively better at being more upstream in terms of getting a hold of data, the analytics, and it's still nascent
in its kind of understanding, and we need to get better and more sophisticated about how we talk about it.
I'll just pick
and
up
how
on
we
one
interpret
thing.
it.
Which of Facebook and YouTube's comments, with which of those comments are they being brazen?
Oh, it was my favourite one, didn't you see? But there was a YouTube 24% of the advertisers' TV money should go into YouTube.
Mm-hmm.
It was at Brandcast, and that may or may not be right, but it could be 5%, it could be 60%. But it for me is they are aggressively going to go into and push for a role in the media mix, which is less about incremental and more about mass. So they're going to try push very hard up against what TV's traditional role was.
Okay. All right, well, we'll see how that plays out. We're going to open it up to some more panel voices right now, but I just want to say thanks for coming.
Thank you.